it's been very emotional, obviously. So if I break down, please bear with me, but I will try to get my act together. Okay? It's always wonderful to hear your students come back and tell you that you influence their lives. Right? And that is the joy of being a faculty member, really. That's the true joy. Okay? So good evening. I know it's quite late. And I asked Truong how much time I have. He says, so he said, this is your event. Take your time. Okay. Yeah. So I said, okay, that's not a good guidance to a professor. Okay. The only way I know I'm running out of time in a classroom is when I see people moving their feet. The students start making noise, So, what I have learned over the years, so now I actually have an alarm. So my phone, I put an alarm, and it's actually 1 minute before my lecture ends, and I tell them I have 1 more minute to wrap up because they're beginning to move. So, thank you for coming and spending the day at this event. I know many of you had to travel long distances and take the time to come here, so I do appreciate. I think certainly there are many better ways of spending a Saturday. Okay, I know I'm very fortunate and blessed to have so many well-wishers. I just look in the room. Okay, I want to thank Truong, Zina, Tara, Ramesh, and Bill for organizing this event. Of course, it's wonderful. So many of you spoke today. Okay, I appreciate that you were willing to look past my shortcomings and say wonderful things about me. I think so. I hope my wife and daughters heard all these nice things. Okay. And that they'll remember at least for 1 week. It doesn't last, so I can hope for 1 week. Okay. While thinking about what I wanted to say, I had a few options. So I said, maybe, I'll try to copy someone else's. Okay? But then I realized no two lives are the same. So you couldn't really copy somebody's retirement speech. It just doesn't work. Okay? And remember, I'm retired. So what that means to me is I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. Okay. I could continue to toot my own horn, but I think it's gotten boring a little. Now it's too tedious. Okay. So you had enough of that. Okay. Maybe ChatGPT. Okay, that was my answer. So maybe I will use ChatGPT to write my speech. Okay. So I did try. Okay. So can we start the slides, please? So I thought I will ask ChatGPT to help me with my speech. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, what do you know about Bhaskar Rao? Okay. And look at what it came back. Shocking. No help at all. He says Bhaskar Rao is not a widely recognized or notable figure in terms of global prominence. What? This was very deflating to my ego. But then I found solace in the fact that it says maybe more context would be helpful. You see, I was not ready to give up because, I don't want to do anything I don't want to do. So I said, let me try one more time. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. So I put in UCSD to see if maybe, a pretty narrow scope, So it says, nothing useful. It says if Bhaskar Rao is a faculty member, he doesn't even know that I am. Okay. At least it could have, told people that I was a faculty member. Okay. And it says, go look up UCSD website. Okay. So I realized if I was going to use ChatGPT, I have to train ChatGPT. Okay. So now I found my calling for my retirement. Every morning I will go in and spend half an hour telling it how great Bhaskar Rao is. Because these things learn by training. The more data you provide, they're better. So I ask your help. This is unfair. I spent 40 years, and then this is what it comes up with. So I would love all of you to at least take a few minutes a day to go to ChatGPT and say a few good things about me on ChatGPT. So that a year from now, when I go back and say, what do you know about him? It'll come back with something more meaningful. So unfortunately, it looks like I had to do all the work, So let me start by, maybe we can go to the next slide. So I was thinking about it, and I said, what should I do? Can we go to the next slide? So I thought I would share some fond memories. There's a lot of memories to share, And of course, there are many thank yous. Okay? So I would love to use this opportunity to thank all the people that helped me with this journey. You don't make such journeys on your own. Okay? There are many people who play an important role. So that's what I thought I would do. Okay? So I will try. I may get a little sentimental, but please. But as I started this, I realized there's a danger to this trip. So, and the danger is, let me get to my notes, otherwise, that I'm likely to forget somebody. Okay? And I want to first start by saying it's completely inadvertent. I don't not mean to forget someone on purpose. Okay? And then I have, of course, old age to blame. So I can rely and say, look, I'm getting old. Okay? So sometimes old people, seems like a good excuse. So can we go to the next slide, please? Of course, I want to first acknowledge my parents. Okay? Parents lay the foundation on which you build. So, and parents, of course, make it easy for you to build on the rest of the things. My mom and dad, in case. I was looking for pictures, so, and of course, I never take pictures. My wife always complains about that, So I couldn't find too many. So I put 2 pictures, just so that if my kids complain about one, hopefully they're happy with the other. Okay. So diversity is the name of the game here. Okay. So it's my mom, and she's here today. Okay. My dad, of course, passed away, 4 years ago. So he could not be here today. He was a professor himself. Okay? So he was a professor at IIT Kharagpur, so he knows all the things that go with being a professor. So I was thinking, if he was here and I told him I was going to retire, what would he say? Okay. As you know, in India, people have to retire. It's not a choice. Okay? And so I would say, he would probably say, you're crazy. Okay? He would tell me that I should not. Okay? And like any good son, I would listen, and then I would just do whatever I want. Okay? I would still retire. Okay? So, the next slide, please. Many of you are surprised, probably, if you're seeing in-laws. In-laws are supposed to be for fun, to joke, and do things of that kind. So you're wondering why they are number 2 on my list of people I want to acknowledge. Okay? My mother-in-law, my father-in-law. Okay? My mother-in-law is very in frail health, but they're still here. Both of them are here. They made the journey. Okay? Most importantly, they're my biggest cheerleaders. Okay? And you cannot have enough cheerleaders on your side. and particularly when they actually will go against my wife in my favor. So I want to keep them on my side. Okay, so I appreciate all the support that they provide. Okay, and as you can see, they are here in spite of all the challenges they face on a regular basis. Okay. Can we go to the next slide? I was afraid my wife would speak. Okay, so I was glad because she could have told you things I do not want to know. So my wife, Krishnaveni, of course, okay, and my daughters, Sandipta and Nandana, and they spoke. So I was very nervous, obviously, So, of course, my wife, without her, I would not make this long journey. Okay, she has dedicated her whole life and worked to raise my daughters. Okay, and I could do all I could do. I did not have to worry about things at home. Okay, so I am happy to say. So I'm happy to, people say, oh, I couldn't do it without my wife. I would like to add a but. Okay. This has to do with my tenure. Okay. I and she argue about things that, so, and as you all know, tenure is a very important part of faculty life, This is what gives you a lifetime job, okay? She came here in 88. So she came to San Diego in 1988. Okay? Now she wants credit for my tenure. So Bill, I would want her to help me out. I got tenure in 89, and the paperwork is put in 88. Okay. But then she says, well, she adds a twist that actually we got married in 86. But her visa got delayed, and she came here in 88. That is true. So the inspiration since 86 is what got me tenure. Okay. So I must say this is a difficult one to resolve. So I say, probably true. Okay. So, but anyway, I'm extremely grateful, for that. My daughters, of course, I do not have enough words with them. They're wonderful human beings. Okay, this is all you can hope for. When you raise children, you hope that they all do well in life and they are wonderful human beings. And the second part being more important. Okay, they both went on to do PhDs. Okay, and when I was several years ago, my daughter used to say, my job is a very cushy job. So after they finished their PhD, I said, why don't you go and join a faculty job? Then they realized it's not cushy. Go figure. Nobody wants to go become a faculty member. Okay? So now at least you can see from even when they talk today, they realize the fact that I enjoy my job doesn't mean it's a cushy job. Okay? And I also want, Mohan did not do me a favor today with all his coffee talk. Okay? Because that is the impression my wife has. Okay? So he only reinforced the idea I come here, have coffee with Mohan, then I have lunch, and then I come back and have tea. I say, so I wish, I'm happy Mohan enjoyed my company, but 1,000 cups of coffee will be a hard one to now to dispute. Okay, so that's a tough one. But anyway, I don't, she knows the work that it takes to be a faculty member. So I want to move on to the next slide, please. This is my family, okay? So this was a picture taken in 2019, I think. Okay, and we have 8 brothers and sisters. Okay, so all of them smarter than me, actually. So, and many of them are here. All the ones from the U.S. are here, and they're all married to wonderful spouses, and they are here. Okay? And then my nephews and nieces, they're also here. Okay? I can see them. I hope they are not too bored. Okay? But I hope, there they are. Good. Okay. And I hope they all recognize how great I am. Okay. So these events are very useful. I will orchestrate this, even if there's no purpose, by hiring people, I guess, to talk about me. That may be harder, though. Okay? But I have a wonderful family. It's extremely supportive. So when I go home and when we have gatherings, it's just amazing. So they always, one of the things they do is they look up to me, and I don't know why, but I never ask them why. Okay. So I appreciate that they like my company. Okay, and I am forever grateful for their company. Okay. But I must say, when I think about it, when people, think of you, UCSD makes it easier for you to be recognized. First, as my daughters say, professor of UCSD. That's already get you there. Okay. Then a chaired professor. Okay. Get you one more bonus point. But all these you can Google, and there's so many professors who are professors and they're chaired professors. So there are skeptics in my family, So they say, what's the big deal? I saw so many professors and chaired professors. Distinguished professor, that's UC system. They do one better than everybody else. Okay? You're now a distinguished professor, okay? And that they can't Google. They don't find him anywhere. Okay, so that tells them that, maybe this is really important. He's not just a professor, but he's a distinguished professor. Okay, so that helps a lot. Okay. Now I do want to acknowledge. Next slide, please. I do want to acknowledge my brother-in-law. Okay. If you are from the Indian system, a brother-in-law is always at your beck and call. Okay. You order and they do. Okay. But my brother-in-law is the exception. He does it even before I say anything. So I want to make sure my sisters, I have brother-in-laws, that I don't do that. Okay. Just want to make sure they don't expect that of me. Okay. But he has a wonderful family. His wife and his sons are here. So thank you. By the way, it's not my fault that I had to use this picture. I asked him for a better picture, but I couldn't get one. So this is the best I got. Okay. Of course, family. When I came to San Diego, I was very fortunate that my family grew. I have many friends in San Diego, so I want to share some pictures of my friends. Okay. So this is a picture. The first picture. Sorry. Can you move to the next slide? Yeah. Oh, terrible picture. The left one was taken in 1988, and then you can see a picture taken maybe a couple of years ago. And of course, I want to acknowledge all of them. They made this journey. I've been friends with them for almost 40 years. Okay? So our children grew up together, and so this is a bond that they are now my extended family. You can see Ramesh, if you can spot them. Okay? He's there in that picture in 88, and he's another picture too under the Madras Cafe. Okay? You may have to do some morphing, okay? But not to the women, only to the men. Okay? I also want to acknowledge my dear friend Arun and Rupa. Okay? So I know him even longer. Okay? He's not in San Diego, but close enough, Thousand Oaks. Okay, so he went to IIT. He was 1 year junior to me. Okay, and he was really very generous. That's when I figured out he was such a generous person. He had this fellowship and he had to buy books. Okay? So he would come to me for advice because he knew I was 1 year ahead of him, and he knew what books would be needed, so he could buy them. Okay? And then he would give me these new books. He'd just give it to me to use, and then he could have them the next year. So, so I said, I don't know if I would ever do something like that. Of course, our friendship has continued. So we went to USC, of course, okay, together. So there, of course, we did research for 4 years. Okay. And then he was a faculty member, and then chose to go to medicine, where he's now at UCLA as a faculty member. Okay.
Bhaskar, where is Arun? Can you please?
Oh, yeah. Arun is this, let me see, ballpoint pen. Right there. Right there. Oh, now that I have this pointer, here's Ramesh. And Ramesh in this picture, I think you can spot him. He hasn't changed. This is a more recent picture. Oh, okay. Hi, Arun. Thank you. Okay. By the way, I do, as you know, Ramesh is both a family friend as well as a colleague. So he has a very special place in my life. Okay. And you cannot have better friends than Ramesh. Okay. So I do not have enough words to express what he has done for me in both sides of this equation. Okay. When people say, what are you going to do after you retire? In my mind, I say, I'm waiting for Ramesh to retire. Now, you may ask why. Okay? Because I know he will have much better opportunities. And then I'm hoping he'll call me. In the meantime, I just can relax a little. I get a 1 year break till he calls me back to duty somewhere, okay, to a more fun place. Okay? So, Ramesh, I hope you're looking, okay? Because I need you. I'm not done with your help. Okay. Now, of course, I do want to now move on to the UCSD family. Okay. Can we go to the next slide? As I said, I have a lot of people to thank, so I just bear with me. So these are colleagues. I picked 2 years to get pictures from, so some of you may not be in these pictures, but it's just the 2 that I had. Okay. Now, of course, I also want to thank the staff at UCSD because, when you have wonderful colleagues, of course, and that's great, also good, but staff also make your life running smoothly, and I have had no complaints in my stay here, okay? So whenever I needed something, I just, I don't even know what my grant amounts are. I just depend on them, and it seems to work, okay? So I'm able to focus on my research. Okay. But before I go I maybe want to say a few words of how I got to UCSD. So that helps talk about my journey at UCSD. So a few words about graduate days at UCSD. Can we go at my graduate days at USC? Can we go to the next slide, please? I will return to UCSD. Okay. So this is 79 to 83. I had great mentors. This is where I really learned about research. Okay? And my advisor was in controls. Okay? And then he wants to do VLSI. I said, I was a grad student. So I said, controls, VLSI, I don't know. I don't even see any alphabets common, and it's, nothing common. Okay? And from him, I learned this lack of fear. When something is new and exciting, if you like it, just do it. Okay? So he was brilliant. In fact, the first year was so hard to keep up with him. So I would go in there thinking I had a great proof, and then he would give me a one-liner, and I had a page, and I was trying to prove something, and he would give me a one-liner proof, and it was very depressing. Because you worked hard on these proofs, and you think, you've achieved something. Of course, I had 3 publications as a graduate student, okay? And you can see Arun is on 2 of those, okay? And if you look at the Google citations, you see, for my area, that's pretty good. Okay, very good. Okay, so they actually got me off at a great start because I was able to do very good work when I was a grad student, and I was able to learn about what good research is under their guidance. So I was very fortunate. Of course, when I was there, I had great teachers. Okay? And Professor Kailath would come and give a lecture. It was mesmerizing. I would listen to them, and of course, I didn't have enough knowledge at that time, so I couldn't follow. But it was amazing how he would connect things. Okay? And of course, they all inspire you. My advisor, of course, those days there's no Google to search. And my advisor, I would ask him a question about some reference. He says, "Okay, let me call Professor Kailath." Professor Kailath knows all the papers. Okay, he'll give you your reference. Okay. So then when I was finishing up, I saw this ad. Can we go to the next slide? This is the ad. Okay. That is how jobs were announced in those days. You sent out these flyers to professors, and professors posted them outside their door. Okay. So it said a position in the Department of Applied Mechanics and Engineering Sciences. Okay. Of course, I also was skeptical like Harry was. It just doesn't look quite right. But I knew Hal Sorensen. So I was using his estimation book and so on. So any concern I had almost vanished right away. And then it says interest in digital aspects of control, estimation, and signal processing. Okay? Digital was the in thing those days. Okay, okay, just like machine learning and AI is. Everybody wanted to throw in digital into their digital control. No more controls. It has to be digital. Okay? 4-bit processors. What a big deal. Hard to believe, right? 8 bits. Intel was planning to come out with 8 bits, and it was big news. Okay. TI would be producing their chips, so it was a fun time to be in DSP. There was this Z transform. If you wanted to confuse someone who knew something, Laplace transform, you said, no, Z transform. So it was great, actually. In fact, I learned Z transform in my undergraduate days. Like some of my fellow students at IIT said, And I actually must say I understood some of it like an undergraduate, just, think I understood it, but I'm not, even to date, sometimes I think I don't understand it. Okay, so it's a bad feeling, actually. You spend so many years and you still don't know. So, but I have learned to live with not knowing. So that's the pleasure of aging, I guess, So this ad actually has some story behind it. You see, it's 82. So you apply, I was graduating in 83, so you apply in 82. Okay? But the same ad had come out in 81. Same ad, exactly same ad. Okay? And it was outside my advisor's door. Okay? I looked at it and said, gosh, looks like a good job for me, but it's a little too soon. Okay? And when I came here, I heard that they offered this job, and whoever it was, thank God, did not accept. Okay, so they re-advertised, and that's my, luck. As I always feel, you better be lucky than smart. I don't care. If you want to give me a choice, I would be lucky. I would rather be lucky. Okay, and luck has been a big part of my life. I realize I have been lucky in many, many, many fronts. Okay. And you can see that with my family, everything that I've been able to do. So I consider myself extremely fortunate. Okay. Can we go to the next slide? So I did come to the Ames department. Okay. And I was there till when UCSD realized that students were getting confused about the degrees they were offering, and the employers were confused about the degrees they were offering, and that they were not doing a good job of reacting to the market, So my colleagues here, Hal Sorensen, Dave Soder, as you all saw. I think Dave Miller was also here. Okay? So I don't know if he's still here, but that's my startup package. Okay? 10K, okay, discretionary funds, plus a GSR for 2 years, and 1 month summer salary for 2 years. Okay? So I said, and Dave Miller told me that's the best package they've offered. Okay. That barely bought me an IBM PC that year, actually. And that was the PC that Hari was talking about, that I would give him a key to my room so that he could use when I went away. It had 64K of memory. I know this is for the youngsters, 64K of memory. Okay. In fact, this 10K did not go too far. We had to pay for computing services. So we had to log in remotely into a server and use the computer. Okay? And if you used it from 8 to 5, it was extremely slow. And the cost was high because they would charge you a rate. It's like your meters in your house for electricity bill. Use it at this time, your rate is high. Okay? So 8 to 5 was the highest possible rate. And the cheapest rate was 12 midnight to 8 o'clock. Okay? So actually, I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and try to be here by 4 a.m. and do all my debugging by 8 a.m. so that I could run them when so that I didn't have to debug at the higher rates. Okay? So they were fun times, But I would go to sleep early. So it's not that I worked 24 hours a day. Okay, I would religiously go home and go to bed by 9. So, but it was fun times, and I would share this computer with Hari. So it was. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Bhaskar, you forgot to tell us your salary.
Oh no, I don't want to talk about salary. That's one thing I learned after I had an experience with a student who came and told me, he was in his early 30s, that he was retiring. Okay. And when a student comes to you and tells him he's retiring, then I said, do you want to work at UCS? He says, no, I don't need a job. So then I stopped asking students their salary, nor mentioning my salary. Okay. But we got pretty good raises the next 2 years. So. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So at ECE, of course, I've been very fortunate. I have fantastic collaborators. So the list grows. Okay. So I've written papers with many of you. Okay. And we have many young colleagues. Okay. Pia, Florian, Dinesh. I'm hoping to ride on their shoulders for a few more years. Okay. Because I've used all my other colleagues, why not my younger colleagues? So I'm hoping that there will be a few more good years, but with their help. Okay. Of course, I had several teachers at UCSD. By the way, I did not know the ABCDs of communications when I came here. Okay. I all learned it from the communication group at UCSD. I attended all their classes. Okay, so I would just go sit in their class and say, this is the only way I can learn it, and let's just do it. Okay? In fact, I didn't list the math professors that I bothered by going to their math classes. So I learned a lot of numerical linear algebra and analysis by going to the math department and taking classes. So I just simply decided that was the easiest way to learn. Reading a book is much harder, actually. Of course, when I needed to learn something practical, I just decided to go to the industry. Okay? I love sabbaticals. Okay? So I have used every sabbatical that there is. My next sabbatical, if I had to continue, was 3 years from now. So not enough incentive to keep me. I said, So certainly, sabbaticals have been very valuable to me in terms of learning about what the industry cares and hopefully bringing that to my work. I do want to say a thing about communications. Maybe I will reserve it for a little later. Can we go to the next? Of course, the thing that I probably will miss most is really teaching. So when I decided to retire, I wanted to free up time for some of the things I really care about. Okay, and research is something I still care deeply about. So I'm hoping that will continue for at least a few more years. Okay, but teaching is something I love. Okay, if I could somehow just go lecture and then do nothing else. Okay, so I've taught many courses over the years. Some very standard, so very established courses. So I had notes from my USC days or some other source, so it was very easy to follow. Then there are some courses that I just simply taught because I had to learn. Okay, but I couldn't go to those classes to learn. There were no such classes. Okay, and I used the students as a guinea pig. Okay, of course. So I just had to be 1 week ahead of the students or 2 weeks ahead of the students, So I just simply needed to learn about speech coding. I said, okay, you just go teach speech coding. Okay. I needed to learn about speech recognition, go learn it. Of course, I had spent some time at Bell Labs before I started doing this, but still I had, we needed a course in MIMO wireless comm. Okay, just teach it. So I just benefited by this exercise by just simply teaching. And I still think even subjects that I think I know, every year there would be a student who would ask a question, and then you realize you really don't know. Okay, you still don't know, and you have to come back and spend some time trying to refine the. And the student may not even know that they ask a deep question. Okay? They just ask this question, which is simple, straightforward. Okay? And suddenly you realize you take things for granted when you do these things, and sometimes there are assumptions built in that you do not really clearly enunciate. Okay? I do enjoy teaching, though. So can we go to the next slide, please? Of course, I have to acknowledge my signal processing colleagues. So when I have to think in terms of family, my UCSD family and the DSP family in the Signal Processing Society is one that has nurtured me over the years. Okay? So I have many people to thank in this context. Of course, I had great mentors. As a young faculty member, you do need good mentors. You watch and you learn what is the best. Okay? I had, of course, my own advisor, Professor Chalapa, who spoke, Professor Moskave, who's in the audience, a very generous person. Of course, all of them are very excellent in their research, but very, very generous with their support and advice. Professor Kailath, Professor Reddy, Paul Raj, Professor Louis Schaff, Don Tufts. These were all the pioneers when I was in my early stages and from whom I learned a lot. Okay. Then, of course, you need colleagues who keep making sure you're doing well, who always excel and guide you towards excellence. I am, of course, surrounded by excellent colleagues. Okay? So they're always pushing you. You don't need more. But still, when you go out to the society, you have more. Of course, PP, Georgia, and then I have many more names listed here. You heard PP speak, Georgios. Okay. If you see their CVs, very impressive people. I don't know if they sleep. So that's the only thing I always, when I try to find an excuse of why I cannot be as good as them. So I just simply say, maybe they don't need enough sleep. I need 8 hours, okay? So if you need less than 8, then you got a few hours over me, okay? But, they're awesome colleagues, so they're always, you watch they do and always wonder. And, of course, they guide you towards excellence. So that's always helped me in my work. Can we go to the next slide, please? Last but not the least, our graduate students. Okay, so I have been blessed with graduate students, great graduate students, over my 40 years. Okay? So these are the students. This is 2000, I think, picture. I see Elise is in there. Okay, so she mentioned 2000, so it must be 2000. And then the group maybe 2016, somewhere there. Okay. Yeah, so we do, I haven't taken my students as much out as I should have probably, when I look back and I say, I have not socialized as much with my students as other faculty do for some reason. Maybe I was afraid I may not be able to crack the whip when the time was called. But nevertheless, I always say, they're a very important part of my life, of course, obviously. Okay. Let me say a few more words. Can I go to the next slide? So, over my last 40 years, I've graduated 42 PhD students. Okay. And some, of course, have been co-advised. Okay, so I have the pleasure of co-advising. And in your journey, all of them make you look good, okay, at different stages, And so Hari was student number 2, as you can see on that list. Okay. Then I have several students, and I will try to, it's hard to cover all of them. My apologies if I don't talk about you in this context, but I will try to. So these are the first 22. Can we go to the next slide, please? That's the next one. Okay. With Rohan, who you saw today, was the latest. Okay. Now, each one of them has, comes into my office and they shape my research. Okay. I have an agenda, okay, and of course, sometimes students have their own agenda. Okay. And when they come with me to me, I suggest a problem to them, and I try to gauge their interest. Okay. I would not try to force anything because I realize that is the least productive in research. Okay. So if I see no spark in their eyes when they talk about the problem, then maybe they need to move on. Okay. Next problem. Okay. And that has happened many times. Okay. But it doesn't frustrate me because I know I can find the next student. So I don't worry about running out of this. If I have an idea, I have time on my side, okay? And so I can always find another student. So they have helped me through this journey in ways they do not know, okay? They think I'm doing them a favor, but maybe now I can share they do me a favor, really. So in that sense, I think it's a very, very nice relationship. Can we go to the next slide? So the first few students I will highlight because they play a very important role in getting to the tenure process that I just discussed that I'm in dispute with my wife about. Okay? So the first few students are very important. So when you go to my I had 2 PhD students during my first 6 years. Okay? If I was currently an assistant professor, I would probably be fired. I would not make it. 2 students, not productive enough, he needs to leave. I just had 2 students at that time. So, and Hari was my second student. So I think Hari and Rong Peng, my first students, are the ones that got me tenure. Okay, they are the ones whose work was responsible for me to get tenure. Okay, Hari, of course, did this wonderful work on root music. Okay, and I think PP talked about that, and it has close to 1,200 citations. Okay. So, of course, at that time, Moss was the inspiration for this work. Okay, I remember this work came because Hari read Moss's paper, which had an award-winning paper. He said, if you're going to read a paper, why don't we start with an award-winning paper? And so we read his paper, and then we got inspired and took a different direction, but certainly that played a very important role. Okay. Can we go to the next slide? Irina and Bill Gardner are the next 2 students, and that's what got me my professor position. Okay. So you can see, in this day, I would not make assistant professors have more than 4 students. A professor with 4 students, not going to cut it. Okay. So I'm glad I joined when I did. Okay. Of course, Irina came back from Los Alamos, like Ethan suggested, with this problem, and she presented to me what she was doing. Okay. And I was very skeptical. It was simple linear system of equations, And I was just said, everything about linear equations, system of equations is known. How can there be something that you can still do with linear systems of equations that people don't know about? Okay. So then I realized that there are still some questions that are not answered. Okay. So it took me a while to realize this was a bigger problem than what she had brought. So, of course, the algorithm that she developed, we tried to analyze, and I think Ethan did a great job of talking about some of the analysis we did. Okay? But at that time, I realized I had stumbled accidentally on a problem. But then I look around, nobody was working on it. So that was, as a researcher, you're always figuring out when you go to the room and make a presentation, the room is empty, okay? Because nobody cares. The latest, hottest topic is what people care about, and nobody cares if you're working on something. Fortunately for me, NSF, for some reason, decided to fund my work, okay? As somebody pointed out, money makes a difference. I think, hurry. Either money or recognition is important, and I had, fortunately, money to sustain me for a few years to get this work going. And so I started doing some thinking about this problem. And then I realized that many people had actually looked at this problem, okay? But it's hidden in these papers that nobody outside that area could potentially read. And they were not described in a way the generality of the problem could actually be discovered, that others could use it. It's like least squares, Everybody could discover least squares on their own, okay? But then it would not be much value to others who don't know about least squares. Okay? So this was quite revealing for me because it took me several years to actually progress with this work. But fortunately, I don't know why I did it, but I believed in it. And so I stuck with it. Okay? And I think it has paid off. Okay? So this paper has over 2,000 citations at this time. Okay? Can we go to the next slide? By the way, at that time, I was in a transition because the Cold War had ended and all the projects from the Army stopped cold. Okay? So the funding had actually dried up. Okay? So I was doing array processing and I was being funded by the Army Research Office, and I had gone on sabbatical, thinking I had money for the next 3 years. Okay? 1989, as you all know, the Berlin Wall fell, the Cold War ended. In January, I get a call from my ARO program manager, says, your project is going to end, only first year funding, that's it. Okay? No more funding after the first year. Okay, you need to wrap up your project. Okay? Here I was going on my sabbatical thinking I don't need to worry about money, I can worry about research. Okay? So that's when I started looking at new problems. Okay? What is the new problems I want to look at? Okay? And so we were thinking about applying array processing to MEG. That's really what was the reason for actually me sending Irina to Los Alamos. Okay? Fortunately, of course, Bill Gardner one day walks into my office and says, I want to do speech processing and I want to be your advisor. You to be my advisor. So I said, I have no idea what speech processing is about. I don't do any speech, he says. I said, oh, you do DSP, you do statistical signal processing. That's what speech processing is about. I will teach you all you need to know about speech processing. Okay? So Bill just taught me speech coding. Okay? He introduced me to this wonderful world of speech coding, but it is linear prediction. Okay? So I said, that I know. Okay? I could teach linear prediction, in my sleep. Okay? But I didn't know that was what speech coding was all about. Okay? But once the connections were made, it was just amazing. It was easy. Okay? But then of course, as with anything else, it's good to be ignorant. Okay? You enter a field thinking you know, and then you realize you don't know, but it's too late to back out, And so you just stay. Okay? So we did some very interesting work on vector quantization. Okay? And I think that is the work that Georgios alluded to. It turns out people try to reinvent the wheel. So when I was looking at the quantization work in communications, 10 years down the road, okay, they would talk about quantization. They would say, we have 4 bits, we'll assign 2 bits to phase, 2 bits to magnitude. I said, why? Okay, what is the basis? Okay, and VQ is optimal. If you had a vector to quantize, VQ is the optimal way to quantize, and this is well known in the quantization community. Okay? But somehow people were still playing around with these bits as if the quantization world didn't exist. Okay? So we saw an opening in that, and I think we made some very interesting contributions there. So Irina and Bill are my reason for becoming a professor. Okay, of course, many mistakes were made during my promotion stage, but I won't complain. They're all to my favor. Okay, they worked in my favor. As they work in my favor, I don't complain. Okay. So let's go back to. Can we go back to the student slide, please? To a few slides back. One more. So I want to talk a little about what transpired after that. Okay. And UCSD became a center for wireless communication, became a hub for communication. Always was very good at communication. And there was a new center for wireless communication being set up. Ramesh was one of the founding members, Larry Milstein and others. They were setting up the Center for Wireless Communication. I knew nothing about wireless communication. I will end up, yeah. So I decided, I would use my array processing skills to go into wireless communication. Okay. And that's what got me into wireless communication. That's how I got into MIMO wireless communication. And Ming Yan was my first student in wireless communication. And I must tell you, our communication between us was very bad. He would use communication jargon I didn't understand, and I would use signal processing jargon he didn't understand. Okay, so it took a while for us to really get in sync. Okay? He would say a fading channel. I said, what the hell is that? Okay, it's a fast fading, slow fading. I said, I have no clue what that is. Please slow down. Okay, but I had the blessing. It was very easy for me to hire him because my guiding principle was the same. I say, if you don't get an A in communications, you don't have an A in coding, I'm not hiring you for communications, because I cannot teach you communications, I can teach you anything else. Okay? And UCSD was the best place for this. We had 3/4 of communication, 3/4 of coding. I didn't have to do much work. But anyway, and then Yelis. Okay? I do want to say a few words about Yelis. Okay? Because I am shameless. I take good students no matter how they come. Okay? Sometimes students say, you're a great professor and I came to you. Of course, I'm flattered and I will. Sometimes they come for different reasons. And I think Yelis probably came because her husband was moving here, or her boyfriend was moving here, and she needed to move. Okay. And I got great recommendation from Ohio State saying, we are very sorry to lose her, but our loss is your gain. Okay. And so I knew that Yelis would make a great student on educating me on wireless communication. She didn't know that, of course. And several students did this over the course. I don't have time to go over them, all of them. Okay. So can we go fast forward to the slides, please? Yeah, I think we're over time. So I want to say this is the contribution of my students. Okay. We've been able to get several awards, but several journal papers, several research areas. If you see the research areas, you will see every area starts with a student, actually. So I could put a student in front of it. It told me they are the ones that led me there, and I was happy to follow. Okay, so that's why I was able to move seamlessly through these different areas and let the student do the heavy lifting. Okay. I think we are quite late today, so I will try to wrap up. Okay, so can we go to the next slide? Thank you all. I really do appreciate you taking the time coming out here and celebrating this event. Okay, of course, I will miss being a faculty member, but I probably won't miss the research because I'm pretty sure that will still be part of my DNA. Okay, thank you.